Recorder on before I forget because that's always a good thing. I don't know if I have all my, I'm going to go to speaker mode and then I can highlight whoever is going to speak. I'm Mary Burke-Kelly, and I seem like I'm chaotic tonight, but I'm usually not because I teach all on Zoom, guys. All right, so I've been teaching for about 11 years, and the last four I've been completely on Zoom. All my classes are still on Zoom. I teach, I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth, Texas area. And I teach Zoom, I'd say it's about once a year because it takes that long for people to kind of be ready to take the class, to take the prerequisites so that they can understand the class and all that. So, there's a lot of theory in that class, but Hygiea is a relatively new tool. And what we wanted to do is talk to some of the people that have taken the class from me and see, okay, after the class, out in the real world, how have you been using Hygiea? And, or they can also talk about their experiences in the class or with the class or whatever happened. So what I did is I have a number of people who wanted to share. I was surprised that I had more people than I expected. So what I've got is I've got four live students that are going to share live tonight. They're just going to take like 6 to 8 minutes. And then I also have four pre-recorded sharings. And I guess what I would say is, I don't watch the chat, so Nolan's going to watch the chat for me. I would say, like if you've got questions and stuff, we're more than happy to answer you, but maybe you want to hear the different interviews first because some of your questions might be answered within the interviews. The other thing I would just want to say is if any of you people have just started your journey in acutonics, please don't be intimidated by what these people are going to say. Okay, the people who are going to talk tonight and on the pre-recorded videos, they have been at least through levels 1 through 4, the Acutonics classes, and they have taken Sedna. And once they took those, they can handle Hygiea. And some of them have had even more classes than that. So don't feel intimidated. Like if you're just starting and you've taken level 1 or something like that, all this builds and when it's time for you. So hopefully you won't be intimidated or anything because we all started out in level 1. We all started out with just the basics, and the people that are going to talk tonight have there's several of them that are either fully certified or almost fully certified.
So, Mary, if you want to have Nolan let people in, he's got to have co-host privileges. I don't think he does.
Oh, see, I got thrown off and I knew I was supposed to do that. Where are you? Here, hold on. Nolan is going to be co-host. There you go. Thank you, Ellen. I got thrown for a loop trying to figure out how to get these two to talk to each other. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the East Coast, because that way, if we run over time, East Coast people can like leave, and then if they ever want to watch back this video up on Cosmos, they can. So Wayne Lipinski, I am going to spotlight you so that everybody can see you. You're my East Coast student. Do you want to just share, like I know after the class you sent me text messages and stuff, but just share whatever, how you're using Hygiea.
Well, I'm relatively new to Hygiea. I mean, I took the class, what was it, in June?
June, yeah, yeah.
So I'm still kind of figuring it out. But right after the class, the first thing that I did was if I thought it was appropriate at all with any of the archetypes, I would just do the Hygeia install on my client. And people were just kind of blown away by it. And like, oh, people would say, oh, that was really deep, or I don't know what you did. So I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then the other thing I've done is if I have, like, say, for example, I need to use Saturn, like Saturn is the archetype. So then, and I want to introduce Hygeia, then I pull out the Hygeia fork and I combine it with Saturn. And then I use it that way. And you know, I know that you know, in class we talked about the intervals and inverting and all those inversions. And I'm still like, it's a lot of information. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going over to the forks and I strike them and I pick them up and I listen. And then I do the inversion and then I strike those and I listen. And then I go, oh, which interval do I want? Or which interval sounds better? Is it
I think
sounding
it's nice doing it that way, though.
Yeah,
Because
because
then
it's
you're out of your head. Do you know
I'm
what
out
I
of my
mean?
head, but also it's like, do I want something that's dissonant and more pushy, or do I want something that's more harmonious? Or, you know, I don't know if it's a fifth or a fourth. I'm still, again, figuring all of that out. But I think I have an idea of, oh, this sounds like it's a fifth, or this sounds close to a fifth.
Yeah.
It sounds really harmonious. And so I'm going to use that inversion rather than, you know, the same octave. So
Okay.
I'm using it that way as well.
Okay. Because so for those of you who don't know, that this particular class is really the first time that in the curriculum we really emphasize it's kind of like using forks from two different octaves and they're called inversions. And so that's what he's talking about. And a lot of it is labeling. But I think that if your sense of feel, you're tell them what you do because you're what shiatsu massage and tell them what you do, Wayne.
So I've been a shiatsu therapist, certified in shiatsu since like 2000. And I've added on hot and cold stone massage as well. And then I think the first Acutonics class I took was 2014. And then I took a little bit of a break and then COVID hit and I've been kind of going strong since COVID. Once Zoom entered into the picture, it made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, I work with a lot of touch. I feel the body, what's going on, and then the forks. For me, the forks are great because it really amplifies my sessions. And I'm not an acupuncturist, so I don't or have never used needles.
Yeah, but the thing that like I feel that what you're saying is that you go because of what you do, you're more of a feeler. Do you know what I'm saying? And a touch person. And so to me, it would make sense that listening to them, you can kind of tell whether there's more room to make the shift more comfortable or whether there's less and then it's more dissonant. So to me, you know, to get cerebral for you might not make sense. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, and the other thing is a lot of people are coming for specific body work. They're coming for touch. So I integrate the forks into the sessions. I mean, I think the forks are much more powerful than touch, honestly.
Yeah.
But if they're coming to be touched, they don't necessarily want forks. So I sort of slip the forks in. And
Okay.
then I go back and forth. And then I mean, I can feel what's happening in the body because I can feel how the tissue and the meridians and the points are changing and opening. So it's confirmation for me. And then if it doesn't change, then I go, oh, it didn't change. Okay, now what do I have to do? So I kind of go back and forth and I'm kind of blending both systems that I've been using and studying for many years.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you're actually a good segue. He talked about in the class there was an install. It was like a Hygeia install, and that's what he started using right away. So I think he's a good segue to me sharing video from Carol He. Carol, I know you might be sitting in tonight, but I'm going to show the video where you shared your class experience because I think she's going to talk about in that, you know, she's going to talk about, let me see, I'm going to do advanced, I think. hope I can do my advanced here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to share her video about her class experience, because she's also going to talk about the install and what that was like for her, which I think is kind of interesting if you're thinking about, taking the classes or anything like that. Hold on, I'm like sharing this through advanced here. When I share this is going to be optimized for Hygeia. Okay, Hygeia. It's going to be optimized for your viewing. So when this happens, I'm not necessarily going to be able to see you guys. So if for some reason you can't hear it or you can't see it or whatever is going on, somebody's going to have to open their mic and tell me, because I'm going to turn my mic off. So we're going to optimize this. And this is like about 6 minutes long or so. And I put some subtitles in. I'm going to polish them a little bit later, but there's subtitles in here. I'm going to talk a little bit about taking the class or before and after the class.
Yes.
Whatever. Share some of that.
So before, I was using it a year and a half without taking the class, the Hygeia class. And then I was just using the sheets, the one sheet of the keywords that you give me, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then,
In other words, like I sold her the forks because I didn't I didn't hold the class when you were interested in the forks. So you bought the forks and I sent you a sheet of keywords
yes,
so that you could function.
yes.
Yeah.
So I just like, it uplit all the appliance and purification for everything. So I started use it, and I use mostly high frequency. But then I would ground myself. I don't know why. I would ground myself with Sept and Hygeia in the end of the session. And then I was in shock because I was somewhere else. Like I was sitting here and I can see myself on a beach.
Yeah.
And looking at the ocean. And this is like you are at the same place in the same time, two places in the same time. And I was like, oh my God, what is it? And then I look at the multi-dimensional.
Okay.
Then
so
yes,
you're experiencing one of the key words is that she's multidimensional.
And I did not know. Of course, I thought, okay, it does. And then I was like, okay, I was somewhere else, and I was in shock, that kind of stuff. But then, and then I finally get to take the class this June 2024, and it was the end of the very end part of my thesis, which is about ancestor healing circle meditation. And then I immediately knows that Hygeia are gonna take a big part of the meditation, like the kind of stuff. But this class is really helpful because I get to know all the details of what it paired with which planet and what it did, because we has been using it, but then I really knows everything. It's like we use it in the meditation with Hygeia and Venus to send multi-dimensional like love to multi-dimensional energy to ancestors across in the generation. So we really get to put the intention into this project. And also, when I was doing in the end of the class, we did a Hygeia installation. And it is quite very strong and powerful because I remember I went outside in the end of the class, I went outside to sit in my garden. And everything was spending. It's like the sky, the wind, the sunshine, and they were all talking to me. And then it's like I can feel everything is so strong.
Yeah.
and I can sense every energy. And yeah, and then I can feel like I don't know who is talking to me, but either my vegetable is talking to me like a pick me and eat me, or the energies, whatever the customer energy say, okay, pick this beets and pick it and go inside and make a soup. And I was like floating and like, oh, okay, this is so much. And I was barefoot on the ground trying to ground myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, and then I pick all the vegetables and went inside and make a soup and drink it. And I feel better. It's the beets.
Okay, because like
Yes.
the food is also grounding. So,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so it's very strong and very powerful. And
Okay.
then yes, and then I get to go up, ask you to do the recording with the
Yeah, so
Hygeia
you
gongs.
came up here. You
Mm-hmm.
live in Austin,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I
Yes.
live up in the Dallas Fort Worth
Uh-huh.
area. So you came up, and I have a Hygeia gong. So
Mm-hmm.
you originally came, so you recorded them.
Mm-hmm. Because I took the class and I knew the Hygeia need to hold the energy. Hygeia wants to hold the energy of the meditation. And I did ask for the permissions and asked her to calm down and hold this 10 castle meditation, hold the energy transformer, the ancestor and everything, and uplift everybody's ancestors and everything, go to higher place. Yes. So I think this class really just, as soon as I did the installation, and then I could just feel more like what I need to do, what Hygeia wants.
Okay.
Yes, I feel like I can feel like she wants this. Like she want to
That's
be in
good.
the meditation.
But you know
Yes.
what? That's good for me to know as a teacher that
Uh-huh.
the installation can have
Uh-huh.
benefit because as teachers, we have our choice of what we're going to do, particularly when we're teaching it on Zoom. We have different choices of what we're going to do with that time. And it's good to hear the feedback of that
Mm-hmm.
the installation had benefits for you.
Like when we did the installation towards the end, like I can feel the energy crawling up to the spine, the Hygeia snack, crawling up your spine, crawling up your spine.
Okay, so
And
that's the
then,
spiral. Another,
yes,
we use like all five of those forks at the end, don't we?
yes.
Thanks so much for
Uh-huh.
sharing.
Yeah.
I really
Well,
appreciate that.
yeah, thank you for having me. Yes. The
Okay.
Hygeia is amazing. Hygeia is so powerful and profound. Just, yes.
One of the things I just want to say real quickly is Carol and her thesis partner have given us permission to post her thesis with all the other theses that are up on Cosmos in the thesis area. So it'll be posted there soon. And it's really a fantastic
Okay. Because
thesis.
at the very end of this class, I do have Carol talking about how she used Hygeia in that meditation. Okay.
It's a really beautiful
Right.
project on ancestral healing, and we're going to get it up on
Right.
Cosmos. She just gave
And
us
I
her.
highly recommend that you guys, like she has, well, she'll tell you in the little video that I have at the end of this class. And even if you're not here, because we'll run late now, then just watch the video at the end where she talks about everything that you would get, in order to do this for yourself. Okay. So it's just a real big contribution, I think, to the community, and Hygeia played a big role. So, Patsy Pleasant, you are in the central time zone. So, you are my next person. Let me highlight you.
Okay.
Okay. And it is up to you how you want to share, how you're using, like, are you using Hygeia in
Oh,
your practice
oh
or?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, every session that I do. And then I work with clients with disabilities. And I'm really finding there's just been so many people who've had losses in my circle. And so I found that taking the chimes in really helps relieve the heaviness of grief. So I just clear their rooms and just around their body, and then cocooning them with the green fork and earth. I call it Earth Day. I
Yeah.
don't remember what it's called. And Hygeia, high frequency, and that is just it always seems to help them a lot in how they're feeling and to be able to manage their grieving process more independently with less difficulty. Um, but I will have to say that ever since I took the class, like I first started out, because I didn't really understand much. I just started out by every time I worked on the extraordinary vessels, I would end with a Hygeia octave, just because what my understanding was is it, you know, supports whatever you did and uplifts it and energizes it, and clears the field. So that's how I started using it. And then there's a couple that I've been working with, and she has from baking baking the cake. I'm still working with that couple, and it's been remarkable, the changes that have happened over time for both of them. They're not so enmeshed with one another, and I use Hygeia in just depending on what what they're going through. But when I first started, they had both been just cycling through COVID, having COVID over and over and over again, just getting sick repeatedly. And so, I just, listened to each of them. And with him, he had a father who was a minister, and he still had a lot of, I guess, programming or um, internal conflicts about how his dad believed, and then one of his brothers is a minister, and he's into qigong and different meditations and martial arts and Native American church, and just not a traditional spiritual journey. So I used Hygeia and Saturn with him on his Chong. And that just, it seems like that just really helped him release a lot of that internal dialogue and conflict that he had over how he was raised by his dad.
So in other words, like Saturn represents the father in that case, and
Yeah,
the authoritarianism, and then the Hygeia is uplifting and elevating him out of the negative responses to that, is what she's describing. And
right.
then being on the Chong, yeah. So that,
And then it seems like the first 3 sessions or so, whenever I would go down I just call him H Chase, um,
that's fine.
he would express that he would have a lot of discomfort at the base of his spine when I would go down the Washujajis um, and work on the sacrum. And so, about the fourth session, I decided to address that, and I used Uranus Hygeia because it has that impact of going in and breaking up, but it's gentler than just Uranus, like Uranus Om. And ever since I did that, he hasn't had that experience.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's,
So it makes a big difference.
yeah,
And also for people who haven't taken the class, I teach actions of forks with keywords. Okay. So she's describing a lot of the very typical keywords for Hygeia. She's talked about just purification and cleaning things out. She's talked about uplifting and elevating. She talked about also just uplifting our hearts and allowing, because the Hygeia tools have the ability to, it's the ling portion of our heart. So in other words, that's the allowing portion. So yeah, so she's describing what's happening in real world, but if you tie it back to the class, those are some of our keywords that we try and teach you guys that this stuff does. And and I have to admit too that when I first started with Hygeia, I did use the thing that she talked about at the beginning, where she was using a Hygeia octave on an extraordinary vessel to maybe end her conversation. Like maybe she had other intervals first, and had the opening in the middle, and then she's ending. Another keyword for Hygeia is integration. All right. So, and with her chimes, she's able to sanitize and purify, but she's also integrating the entire session. So these are all uses that you can use for the various tools, whether you have the forks or whether you have a chime or whatever. And yeah, I think she does soften a lot of things. So thank you for all that. And I didn't know you were using it that much, but she had my Hygeia class, like last year or something.
Year and a half.
Like a while ago. You may have been in the first class that I taught.
Yeah, and I'm learning. I mean, I'll just pick up something, a combination, and I don't really remember what the book said, but then my client goes, "Wow, that was really different," And it seems like that when you said integration, that seems like the theme that's happening for this guy, because all of these spiritual paths that he's been on are like integrating. He's making progress and feeling strong again, and it's kind of like he's reclaimed his power through all of this. So he's very happy.
And that's very rewarding for you too, to
It
see
is.
that, to make you feel like you're facilitating a difference or a shift for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he says all this stuff, and I go, okay. I'm really glad that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So
you for the opportunity.
thanks for sharing that. That's a great story, and I'm sure you'll tell me more. And when she said baking the cake, that's my clinic hour class. So, all right, I'm thrilled. I'll be thrilled to see your plan.
I love that class. I'm going to take it again.
Okay. So I was trying to give us a little shift in here. So that's why I'm doing like a live interview and a recording. So the next person that I pre-recorded is Dawn Maxwell. Okay. And she's so succinct. I'll let her speak for herself. But I'm going to share that video. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of leading us out of the class a little bit. My last video was about class experience. All right. Now I had no idea Dawn was using this for self-care. Okay. So let me get this as big as I need to get it and start it. Okay, so I have Dawn Maxwell here, and I'm just going to ask you, how have you used Hygeia since you had the class?
Well, I can tell you that I've used Hygeia in self-care. I recently went through a transitionary period where I left a very yang-oriented work here in St. Louis, I did sports videographer. I'm a sports videographer for Major League Sports, and I was working for Bally Sports here in St. Louis, and it was a very toxic environment, and I knew I needed to leave it, and I needed to do a lot of self-care. And also, you know, my sister had just died in December, and there was a lot of stuff going on. There was some Sedna issues with some people who did some really bad things that affected me at the end of the year. Just a lot of stuff. So I needed a lot of self-care. So to give me some much needed boost and stuff, I used Hygiea in my self-care, just because I used Venus with Hygiea in the fifth. I did the inversion using the low Venus and the mid Hygiea to create that fifth. I used that on Ren 17, and just to give myself some self-love, and just needed that. I feel that Hygiea elevated the feminine archetype, and also gave me the boost to take care of myself a little bit more. But I got to tell you, you know, I used Venus and Hygiea in Three Treasures. It's just, I think we need three treasures. But I gotta tell you, honestly, coming from a very male-dominated world, I have noticed a transition. I have noticed a change in myself to where I never before was attracted to like pink or feminine type things, you know, but now I am. And it's like all of a sudden I'm like buying art that has more pink tones. I bought a painting that's called Venus Sunrise, and with pink tones, and
Yeah.
and I bought makeup for the first time in years, and I'm buying clothes that are I'm more attracted to looking better rather than looking like, you know, jeans and t-shirt all the time.
Or
Which is
like one of the guys. Like, in
exactly.
other words, like what were you the only female videographer? So how many years did you work for them?
I've been working in sports for 43 years now.
Okay, so in other words, you had to be one of the guys to fit in because
I
it's a very male world.
Very, very.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so you want to fit in, you want to be one of the guys, and you're lifting heavy stuff and you're sweating and you look horrible and you look like you're a drowned rat at the end of the day, you know, and you can't dress pretty. But on the side, I was like, after I decided to leave, it's called being on the home show for Bally's in St. Louis. And that's a big deal because everybody wants to be on the home show. It means that you've got more work. You're elevated to a certain point in time, that you're on the home show. You're
That's when like they come back to the desk or something and they do their commentary on
right,
the
but actually,
baseball game or whatever they're doing. Okay,
yeah,
I'm letting people who don't have, I have a husband that worked in sports, all right? So I'm just letting them know what home show is. Okay.
the
Yeah.
home show is like, if you watch sports in St. Louis, it's going to be Bally Sports Midwest. If you're in LA, it's going to be Spectrum Sports is the home show. So it's a big deal. And so I decided to leave that. And I think I think Hygiea also helped me, because I was using some Sedna in there also, just because of a sense of betrayal that I had with some people who did some bad things, who were part of that toxic environment, and I needed to deal with that. So I was using Hygiea with Sedna. again, doing the fifth, the inversion, the low Hygeia with the mid Sedna. But I think Hygeia helped elevate Venus and Sedna's archetypes, but also because Hygeia is associated with both a bird and a snake archetype. So with the snake, you have the shedding of the skin. With the bird, you have flight and elevation and leaving things behind. And that's what I was doing with leaving the home show and transitioning into a more, I guess, better world, I guess. And wanting to move more into massage therapy because I'm also trained in massage therapy. So I believe, and I gotta tell you, I've felt the difference. Like I said, I don't think about the toxicity anymore. I'm not bothered by all that Sedna stuff with the sense of betrayal that I had, and just feeling, not vengeance, but like, just betrayal.
So in other words, this happened, you were able to leave that job after you had done self-care, and then you also don't have the bitterness that you're holding.
That's it. I've
Yeah.
let it go. Before I started doing my self-care with
Yeah.
Hygeia, Sedna, Venus, I had that bitterness, and I would think about it. I don't anymore. And again, like it's crazy how all of a sudden it's like, more, I want more girly things or more feminine. I'm attracted to more feminine things now, which I never was, it's been so long. So, and I've lost, I lost that. And so now I'm like, I have felt it. I felt it, and it's subtle. It's subtle how it happened, but now I'm like, wow. And I can look
So do
back.
you know like how long, or like what was your frequency on the self-care for that? How often? I mean, did you do it like weekly or
Weekly. I'm
okay? Okay.
doing a couple sessions a week. And I would take some time with my sessions, and I would, pick a couple EVs, do and Ren, where I always liked working with do and Ren. I mean, you can't go wrong, with
Yeah.
the cosmic orbit. But yeah, I was doing it a couple times a week, but I can't stress enough how much I think everybody needs to do self-care. We need it so badly. I mean, we don't spend enough time on ourselves, and I gotta tell you, this stuff this stuff works, and it just I can't speak enough to how much it has helped me and continues to help me, and I can go into the room at any time, and even taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it doesn't take, you just need that much time to just treat yourself, get
You're
these
inspiring me.
get,
Because I don't do it enough. I think a lot of us who get into this are don't do it enough, kind of thing. So then also you had told me that for the first time you're going to take a Venus related trip. Do you want to just share that?
yeah, I mean, again, following all this self-care that I did, in March, I decided to take a big blowout trip in November where I'm going to be gone for a month, and I'm going to go to Korea, Thailand, and Japan. I'm going to study Thai massage at a Thai massage school in Chiang Mai. But I'm like, I'm just going to stop and smell the roses in Seoul, Korea, and I'm going to stop and smell the roses in Tokyo on the way too. And I've never done that before. I've never treated myself or allowed myself to have a trip like that. I haven't had a vacation in probably over 30 years. truly, I've never done that. And for some reason, all of a sudden, during all this self-care, I'm like, F it, I'm doing it, And
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, and then there you just used the word allow myself. And Hygeia has that allowing the ling of the heart to allow. All right. And also with Venus, Venus is pleasurable things. So yeah, you're inspiring me.
yeah, but I got to tell you, it works. So do some self-care and use some Hygeia in there. But I think also, in addition to the self-care, I think right now, with the heaviness, the energetic heaviness we have right now, with everything that's going on in the world, especially in the United States, with the political atmosphere that we've got right now, it's heavy. And I think using Hygeia with Om in treatment would be very beneficial right now. I also think maybe ending sessions using Hygeia octaves would be a really, really great way to just help elevate those energies that you've just used with your forks. And I just think it could be just very beneficial right now. But Hygeia.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for your sharing because I think it's much needed information for everybody, but for me too. I mean, it's been fortuitous that you and I got together today.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks. Okay. So, are we all inspired to take care of ourselves? All right. Boy, she inspired me. Um, yeah. And then you heard a lot of keywords in there as well. So keep listening for the Hygeia keywords. And something else that Hygeia does is she is the consciousness behind the mandala, the wholeness. All right. So she's really good at putting us on a path to our wholeness. And so you may be hearing that in some of the stories here too. So now what time zone am I in? Oh, I'm in Karen's like mountain zone. Karen, let me spotlight you and you talk about whatever you want to talk about with Hygeia.
Hi, everybody. I'm in Durango, Colorado, and I had purchased Hygeia, gosh, maybe 4 years ago. Very interested in Hygeia, and I didn't use it. And I took before I took the class, a really interesting thing happened. I use Hygeia on occasion, and the occasions, I have an intellectual way of using the forks, but I also have an intuitive way of using the forks. I'll often muscle check, or I'll just turn and look at my forks and one will talk to me. So I was working with a gentleman who's a psychic, who's a really high level psychic. We were doing a 5-element balance, which is something I kind of created from my brain gym training. And when we go to each element, we integrate the yin and yang aspects of each element. So we got into the metal element, and he has had this layer of grief where his just he's done all kinds of things and hasn't been able to shake it. And he and I had a couple sessions. He'd made some progress, but we got to the metal element and we had this time warp thing where we went back in time that he had been in the bubonic plague. So I turned to look at my forks to say, which fork do I use? And Hygeia's just like, me. And it was a fascinating experience to take that Hygeia fork, and this transformation and clearing occurred for him that we hadn't been able to get to any other way. So, of course, I got online to see when the next Hygeia class was, and I signed up for the June class. Since then, I use a lot of different ways. I don't use it a lot, but when I do, let me see how to say this. I use it, but not on every client. And I think the reason why is there's a readiness. So we talked about the installation and how deep it goes and how powerful it is. There's certain clients that, boy, that Hygeia they call for. And usually I've been using Sedna with them for multiple sessions that Hygeia just slips right in and takes them to the next place. But my clients that I haven't used, you know, a newer client, maybe somebody I've been really just using a lot of ohm and really gently exposing them to things, it's just, it's too much for them from my experience. What I have been doing, so I've been substitute teaching, and I carry a little bag with me, and I have my tuning forks in the bag. And if I can get in the room before the kids come, I'll use Hygeia and I'll go around the room and I'll clear the room. And I've also been clearing my personal space in my office, and then I go out. We have the office area outside my office. Riff and Raff have been showing up regularly. So we've had a lot of interesting activity. And so I've been going out with Hygeia, opening the door, using Hygeia, and just working the area around the office. That's been super interesting. And I just moved into a new home and I've been using it in my home. So I use it for clearing, for spacing. The other thing I do, which is again kind of unusual, but that's how I work, is I use solfeggio tuning forks with the chakras. And I use them on spinners, so they're like pendulums. Well, when I have a chakra that's not quite clearing and balancing and harmonizing, often I'll bring Hygeia out to work with that particular solfeggio tone. And that's been super interesting too, because what happens is I hold the high frequency Hygeia, this fork is spinning, and it finds Hygeia when it needs it, and it just creates this really lovely tone that helps. And the overtones are very interesting. Like it'll activate, activate, activate. And then when you hit this certain overtone, it's just like, it's beautiful. It's like the angels are singing. Of course, with the EVs, I'll often use it as my ending frequency. And then the client I had yesterday, I just used it, you know, kind of a cocoon, high frequency, just went over the body with her. So I use it a lot of different ways. I want to say I don't use it with every client, but I use it probably more than I realize I do. So it's been a great addition to my offerings.
Oh, I agree with you. I don't use it on everybody either. And boy, Hygeia is helping me out tonight because that is a great segue into our next recorded person, because our next recorded person is going to talk like kind of like you about not using it on every person and clearing her space and stuff like that. So what a segue. This is so integrated. I thought I was doing this by time zone. This has to do with Hygeia's integrating this whole thing. Maybe it has something to do is I treated somebody yesterday and there was a lot of Hygeia in the session. I don't know. You know, you get that stuff yourself. The Hygeia gong was going off and all that. So let me share I have a psychotherapist as a student, and her name is Linda Dutry, and she's almost at full certification. She's working on her clinic hours and things like that. So let me see where she is. Here she is. Okay. So yeah. In other words, why don't you just tell us who you are and kind of like what you do? Because I think you approach cases, you know, within your own field. So go ahead, Linda, take over.
Well, I'm Linda Dutry. I have a private psychotherapy practice in Arlington, Texas. And my psychotherapy practice is a little bit different. I use quite a bit of somatic therapy, specifically bioenergetics, which is a body psychotherapy, which was developed by Alexander Lowen. And I also use a color and light therapy with clients, which is also based on frequency, like Acutonics. And this was developed by Dr. Stephen Vasquez. He has an office in Austin, Texas now. But that, well, it would take a while to explain all that.
Yeah, but we get the idea of what area you're in. But so I was,
yeah, it is energy based. All of it is energy based. And so when I was looking for sound, because I was looking for sound to add to the things that I do, because of the frequency and the vibrational part of that also. Because I tend to be an integrator. I integrate all those modalities together and use them in my practice. So I may do what I would call a straight acutonic session, but I am more likely to do an integrated session with the light or with the body work, the
Which
somatic
is
work.
what Hygeia is all about, is integrative medicine and preventative medicine. So you're right in the flow. So you were saying, like, all right, so how much have you used her since the class, Hygeia? So
How much have I saved them?
how much are you using Hygeia?
Oh, I use it frequently. I have specific things that I do with it. I clear my room in the mornings with number 1 and number 2, the high frequency. And then I also clear it in the evenings. And one of the things that I've noticed recently, and my clients noticed it too, is my other forks, including the forks with the weights, they sound louder. They vibrate louder. So I don't know if that has to do with it or not, but since it's an elevator, that seemed possible to me.
Yeah.
So that my other forks vibrate at a higher, well, I can just hear them more. So that's one of the ways that I use it. Another way that I use it is I have, it's a light box. We call it a light box, and people sit in it, and there's a light in there that I can change to different colors. And I will use the Hygeia, especially at the end after the person has done their work, to elevate the work they've done. And to, and well, I use this and some other things also to ground them in the work, to elevate and integrate the work.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways I use it with the light work. With the somatic work, since they're often on their feet doing various things, I will use it in the field around them. Sometimes if they have a particular issue, I will combine it and layer it on the body, specifically SI11, because there's often a lot of tension in that place on a person's body. So it's easy to get to when they're standing. I'll also do like the heart rim 17. Sometimes I'll layer there. And same thing when they complete their work, I'll put Hygeia and sometimes Sedna in the field.
So when you say layer, are you using like Hygeia with herself, like a Hygeia octave, or do you mean that you're using Hygeia with one of the other planetary forks?
Well, both.
Okay.
I do both actually, but usually when I'm using on the body, I use Hygeia as the last layer.
Okay.
Yeah. And in cord cutting, the same thing. I use your protocol, and I use Hygeia as the last piece of the cord cutting.
Okay. So are you using then as your last piece? Are you using, like, again, the octave of her with herself, or are you using her with like Nibiru for chakras and portals, or how do you know, or is it different every time depending on the case?
It depends on the case.
Yeah,
I've used it both ways. And another way that I use it is when I'm doing an acutonic session. I do the infinity symbol over the body in the field, and I'm using the high frequency 1 and 2 when I do that. So, and then sometimes I integrate it with the extraordinary vessels when I'm doing pure acutonics. But even on my table, I often have people doing bioenergetic things while I'm using the forks. So I'll have to be in a particular position, and then I'll use the forks. But I layer a lot with Hygeia just because of that elevation, integration, transformative thing of bringing in the light is always the way I think of it. So
yeah. So you're using her a lot, and you don't find that she's only specific to certain clients. You find that you can use her with just about everyone, or I know it goes case by case, but you seem to be using her quite a bit.
Well, I do have it, in the energetic field of my office. It does depend on the case. I do have some clients that I work up to using it.
Okay.
Depending on where they are, but so yes, I do think about that when I'm working with people. Are they at a place yet
Yeah.
where they can incorporate this? But usually my purpose is to get them so that they can.
Right. Right. So the elevation is going to help quite a bit, or uplifting them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then also she has within her the allowing part of the heart. So are you thinking of that ever when because you do so much emotional work, don't you? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, also what I put in, often I combine it with Venus when I put it in the field, and I will do the infinity symbol with Hygeia and Venus. Sometimes Jupiter to expand. So I use it I experiment, I guess is the best way to say that.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing all that. I didn't know you were using her that much. So if I have any questions, I might contact you. So. Okay. A lot of stuff that'll be in this video that you guys can get on Cosmos and come back and look at this anytime. I'm hoping it's recording the way I'm hoping it's going to do. I'm in the Pacific time zone now. Where is Kristen? Let me find her. So there you are. So look, you're my first box. How did Hygeia know to move you there so that I could find you so easily and spotlight you? Kristen Wade, take us and talk about what you think about Hygeia or how you're using her.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Wade. I'm a certified Acutonics practitioner, and I took the class with Mary in June of this year. Prior to the class, I was using Hygeia in the field. I had the forks for quite a while, but and I knew the class was coming up, but I think I had the forks for probably a good couple of years, and they just sat there. And in one of our classes, she said something about Hygeia, and the class is getting put together, upcoming, and the main word at that time that really just stuck out to me was that idea of integration. So I started using her in high frequency in the field in combination with Neptune at the end of a session. And the intention behind that was based very much on the idea of integrating with ease and flow for the person. And not just the session itself that had just taken place, but most of the people that I see often are seeing a number of people. They are going to a Western doctor. I've seen people with cancer, surgery, just any number of different things that are going on. And so they're going to their Western doctor for something. Maybe they're going to a massage therapist, or they're doing, a number of different modalities. And my intention behind using high frequency Hygiea and Neptune in the field is to integrate the session they've just had, but then also to integrate all of these different things that they're doing with ease and flow for that person. So what I would do is at the end of the session and just prior to grounding and before moving to my singing bowls and the planetary gongs, which I always do. Well, I use the singing bowls throughout the session as well, but then I do gongs for them with the singing bowls at the very end as well. I would basically go across their body, up, all the way down. And I would activate, let's see, I activate a couple of times. I go up, activate, come down, activate about halfway through, activate again with those high frequency forks, and then do that figure eight. And I cross with a figure eight, usually right in the center about where the heart is. That just seems to be kind of the natural place to cross with that figure eight. And then I always kind of end right in that heart area as well. Okay, so that was prior to the class. And then in June 2024, we had the class with Mary, which was great class. I'll just say a lot of good information in that class. And what I really came away from there is she is really, really powerful, and yet not necessarily in a way that's harsh. She's powerful, she's strong, but she's deep, but in a way that feels very supportive. So that was one of my main impressions that I came away with from that class. There were a couple of other things as well. The fact that she's an adaptogen, which means that she is going to go wherever she's needed. So you can have an intention for what you're using her for. She's going to go with whatever fork she's paired with. You will have an intention for what you're wanting to help that person with. But then she's going other places that you're not even aware of, where she's needed. The main big takeaway for me was this understanding that she's multidimensional. Okay, so she's not just linear, she's not just interdimensional, she's multidimensional. For me, that was really one of the biggest takeaways, because anything that I pair her with, she is going to reach that person in a way that's not just linear or interdimensional. It's multidimensional on all those different dimensions, which I have found to be just incredibly useful for the work. So I'm still using high frequency Neptune and the high frequency Hygeia in the field at the end of the session, with that same idea of ease and flow and integration for that session and anything else they're doing outside of a session with me. But I have started putting her on body more. And I agree with what some of the other people have said. In my experience, it takes not everybody's ready for her right off the bat. What I have found is that introducing her in the field is great, because they get that, they get that sense of her in the field, so they start to experience her. But then I'll go on body with her, and I'm doing that more and more now, and especially with clients that I've had for a while, and we're working on different things. So just kind of an example, in a way, I've been using her almost like Ohm, I guess is what I want to say. So for instance, if I'm opening an extraordinary vessel, instead of using New Moon Ohm, if I use New Moon Hygeia, it's a gentle invitation to open and release on multiple dimensions. So that I'm finding has been very, very useful for people. On the Daimai, for instance, we're wanting to open that belt, loosen the belt, expand it. So Jupiter Hygeia really expand it on multiple levels. It's creating a big shift for people in a way that feels much deeper and very supported. So Venus Hygeia, same thing. If you're wanting to bring yin, love, full moon Hygeia, whatever it is your intention is for what you want to achieve with those intervals, she's just going to elevate and bring that to a multi-dimensional level as opposed to just that linear or interdimensional.
And even like the fact that you started out and you continue to do the Neptune with the Hygeia at the end. You know, when you get into the planets, okay, Neptune is a higher octave of Venus. So there's been a lot of talk tonight. I noticed this theme of a lot of people using the Venus with the Hygeia, and then you're using the Neptune. So it's almost like the oneness kind of love as opposed to the relationship kind of love. All right. Like in other words, like Venus can put things in right relationship and yeah, the love and the opening of the love and the heart and all that. But it's like, really, by you doing that kind of stuff at the end, it plays to taking the oneness kind of love and integrating that at the very end. And the fact that her action is spherical.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's almost like
no,
you're
it's
creating this
multidimensional.
wonderful oneness circle at the end.
Yes.
By doing that. And I also want to mention for people who maybe haven't used her a whole lot, some of the people are talking about, like when she talked about using Jupiter and Hygeia and Daimai and stuff, it's like you can use Hygeia as the balance fork or the fundamental. All right. So it's very similar to Sedna. If you've been in the Sedna class at all, we all, you know, we start out putting everything with Ohm. Ohm is the fundamental tone. We put everything with Ohm, all the colored forks. All right. Then if you move on, we put two colored forks together in level 4, and then you go to Sedna, and then yeah. So then you go to somebody else. I see Karen, you know what movie that refers to. So anyway, so then we start using Sedna as a fundamental, and she shifts the paradigm to being interdimensional. Now we've got another way of using Hygeia is you replace Ohm, or as the balance fork on an extraordinary vessel or whatever. So in other words, she's taking the fundamental now to multi dimensions, like Kristen is talking about. So
That's exactly right.
Thanks.
That's it.
I'm just like putting what you're saying in other words. That's all.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And deeply, deeply nourishing. Like you said, that idea of the whole love. And people who are really needing that, we all need that deep whole love. So
and the sound will be smart. The sound will go on the level that it needs to go, guys. You don't have to worry about it. It's like whatever is needed. It doesn't even really matter. You might have a certain intention, but woo, the sound's going to know that it needs to go, you know, somewhere else. So I have the last, I know it's late, guys. Anyone that needs to leave is fine, but I want to get this on the recording. The very last thing I am going to show is the thing that Ellen mentioned about Carol He's thesis. All right. about she did this meditation to heal our ancestors and stuff, and Hygeia played a big role in that. So I'm going to play that. But I just want to say that it was fortuitous that yesterday I had a client who is taking her first trip to Paris, France, and she's never been to Europe. She's never been like across the ocean, and you know, she wants to go and she's all excited, but there's some sort of fear there. She didn't know what the fear was, and somehow we moved from A to B to C to D. And long story short, I think that Carol's work is very important also for the Black community, because what came up in this particular session is she happens to be a person of color, all right? And she's going back across the ocean. And I used a lot of Hygeia and Nibiru in that session. And at the time, I was like, I just kept getting, you know, ancestors. The fear is like ancestor related. We need to repattern it. Catastrophe has something to do with past catastrophes. And then when we got together for feedback, we both had the aha thing of, yeah, her ancestors were brought across the ocean originally as slaves, and that's where the fear is coming from. And I got to tell you, there was a huge shift using, you know, Hygeia with Nibiru, with all that, the slavery and all that stuff, and Hygeia Jupiter for the long distance trips and all that. But she was super interested in getting a hold of Carol He's ancestor meditation, because I think almost everybody can use to do. So I kind of want to end on this with Carol's recording about how she used, yeah, thanks everybody. And I will end with that, and it'll be recorded if you need to depart. I understand.
Mary, really quick, and I just posted their thesis on Cosmos too.
Did you? Okay.
So it's there for everyone to pull down as a PDF if they want to.
Okay, great.
And the link to the YouTube video is in the document.
So they can have the sound and all that.
And it was a beautiful collaboration, and really, really well done. Mary, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for doing this. It's great. I love hearing how everybody's using Hygeia. It's really great to hear your stories about the work you're doing. And I think you'll really enjoy seeing the video of the ancestor healing.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I'm going to end tonight, guys. And if you're here, good. And if not, you can always come back and look at the video. Okay. We've gone from a Hygeia class to self-care. Thank you all again, in case it didn't record, for joining me, being here later. I'm hoping that you all learned something new tonight, like maybe a different way of using Hygeia, and maybe also got your curiosity up about Hygeia if you didn't know about her before. And thank you all.